More updates now coming in. The BJP has alleged a nexus between Congress and Maoists and accused its leader of fueling Maoist sympathies, calling it a threat to national sovereignty. Launching a sharp attack at the Congress, the BJP alleged that Maoist insurgency in India persisted for an extended period and reached alarming proportions, largely due to policy paralysis during the second term of the UPA government. During that tenure, the then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, on many occasions called Maoism the single biggest internal security challenge ever faced by the country. He also made it abundantly clear that Maoist violence had no place in our democracy, further urging the state and centre to work together to deal what he called a very grave threat. On the other hand, Sonia Gandhi-led National Advisory Council had made contrasting decision. They had labelled Maoism as a socio-economic issue, appointing Dr. Binayak Sen, who had been convicted for ferrying letters between jailed Maoist leader Narayan Sanyal and businessman Piyush Guha in 2011 to the Planning Commission, Health Steering Committee. Moreover, then Home Minister P. Chidambaram had also made half-hearted statements, is what the BJP is saying, 1 month after the Tadmelta massacre of 2010, in which 76 of our CRPF Jawans had been martyred. P. Chidambaram had said, and I quote, "We are not asking you to lay down arms because we know you won't." The question that arises is, why was no action taken then, is the question that the BJP is now asking. Joining us live to discuss this story further is Bhashwati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Major General Dhruv Katoch, defence expert, is also with us live. Major General Sudhakarji, geopolitical analyst, is also joining us live. RVS Mani, former Under Secretary MHA, also joins the broadcast. RVS Mani, a political war also breaking out now between the BJP and Congress. BJP, after its strides in eliminating Maoism, has questioned why much was not done earlier under the UPA, under the Congress era. Also, in fact, questioning Sonia Gandhi's decisions and P. Chidambaram's statements.
Thank you, Uday. Let me put certain facts which are already available on public domain. About Binayak Sen, I have written in my book, Myth of Hindu Terror, where I have called out his complicity about not attending to the injured Jawans approaching him in a crossfire, whereas giving them help, giving the Naxals help and all sorts of, not only medical, going beyond that medical, he used to give them the facilitation help and all. It is all captured in my book. Number two, you have spoken about Harsh Mandar and also in the same thing. There is another gentleman called John Dries, whose wife was a very, I don't know, wife or partner, Bela Bhatia, was one of the top Naxal supporters during that time. How did she do? Another very important point, let me pull you. It is already on public domain. One gentleman, Binay Kumar, has written a book called Quadruga. During the inauguration, although it was in my knowledge, but during the inauguration of the launch of that book, one former Home Secretary had come and he had publicly said, it was all in our knowledge, but in spite of it, he was, with full authenticity, he said, Home Ministry even agreed to fund the road constructions because movement was a problem, but somehow it did not take place or something like that. So the question is, why the Road Transport Ministry or the state government was not making adequate funds for enabling building infrastructure? See, infrastructure was a very important multiplier in the fight against it. So that is also on public domain. So besides that, we have this now, almost we are coming to a Naxal-free regime, maybe as promised by Honorable Home Minister by 2026 March. Besides, there were several, now today incidentally the DGP, IGP meeting is being held in Chhattisgarh, where Honorable, the question is, we could not even imagine holding it in 2010. That was the fear of Naxalites, that was the stranglehold of Naxalites, the Salvadism, and not beyond that, the state government is to ask that Indian Reserve Battalions, please, for some reasons, allow us to recruit, fund us, police modernization funds. That it is all in the matter of CM's conference on 7th February 2010. The interventions of Honorable Chief Minister of CM of Chhattisgarh has said so. So there are, it is not one, there are around 20 to 25 reasons you could find where it can be established that the then government under UPA, I'm not talking of those Naxals like the CPI MLA from Jangamahal was found to be supporting of an Naxal or the other non-Congress parties, but even the major party in the UPA had certainly and tacitly supported looking the other way. Why can't, when the Honorable Chief Home Minister says you will not lay down arms. So even if you don't use the UAPA, at least under Arms Act, they should have been booked. That did not happen. The movements were restrained. The security forces, another very important thing, the security forces in CRPF, etc., were given ramshackle buses, so that even movement within in a very bad road in a bad bus, and the time taken by why the Dantewada ambush happened or other ambush in 2011 happened is the reaction time they would not get, because they would place their communication equipment on the top. That was the size. Now the buses have also been modernized. Everything has been modernized. This is the basic. See, I would say it is not just policy paralysis. I would say there was non-intent on the part of the then government to really address the core issues challenging the rest of to strengthen our Indian security forces to be matching up to the Naxals' ability. Although those days, I have written about the Gadchiroli case also in the same book. Why I am saying this is funds were restrained, resources were restrained, programs were delayed. So it was an absolutely clear-cut case. What is the BJP
many are asking that question, Major General Katoch, as to why these strides which are being made today against Maoism were not made earlier, why this all-out operation did not commence earlier, and also the double-speak, where Dr. Manmohan Singh, of course, was making statements saying that this is a threat which must be eliminated, which our country must deal with utmost seriousness. And on the other hand, the NAC, which was being led by the UPA chairperson at that time, was appointing, Dr. Binayak Sen and others as well to high-powered committees.
Thank you, Uday. Uday, I still remember that statement in 2011, which was made by Dr. Manmohan Singh when he was the Prime Minister. And he said that Maoism is the most serious national security challenge to India. Now, obviously, if he considers it to be the most serious national security threat, then something should have been done about it. I'm afraid there were certain fundamental weaknesses, because I happened to survey those areas and we wrote a report on it, a very comprehensive report, which was submitted to the ministry. And the fundamental weaknesses there were political weaknesses, one, and there was operational weaknesses too. So when the third is, of course, there were administrative lapses, very administrative weaknesses. So when we are looking at it from the level of the state, from the district, from the part of the security forces, their ability to handle the problem, and the lack of political will, I think all of them merged together. At that point of time, the training had started, the training academies had come up, so a little bit of improvements took place. But ultimately, in my own assessment, I said what was required was really that political will to say we will get it done, and then that political penetration into those areas. By political penetration, I mean, you've got to get the roads in and get the political process going. So if the road goes in, the police gets in, the deputy commissioner gets in, and the politician gets in. And if that doesn't go in, then nothing else goes, because the control was really with the Maoists. I remember in one of the meetings I had with the governor of Chhattisgarh at that time, he said there are areas where if I have to go, I cannot go. The deputy commissioner cannot go. And I think it was this should have been taken up at a war footing at a very, very long time. In my view, it could have taken about 10 years. It is not something which could have been done overnight. But over the last few years, I think great emphasis has been done. And now we are on the last leg, where there are only 11 districts left, which has got the presence of some of these Maoists. And at one point of time, there were 191. That is the time I'm talking about 2011. So we have reduced that to 11. And I think very, very shortly, it will be down to 0. I was a bit skeptic, Uday, very frankly, when the Home Minister said, we will eliminate it by 31st March. I'm thinking now it is a possibility. It's a very good possibility, because for the first time, even these Maoists, they want to surrender now. Earlier, they had never even thought of it. So things are changing. It's all for the good. And once we get this problem out of our neck, and that entire eastern belt is free of Naxals, the development work which goes on will again raise our GDP by 1 percentage point. That is a great impact it will have on the economy, getting peace into this area. And one more point, I've just come from a meeting with certain tribal groups, today is the one, they were celebrating 150th year of Birsa Munda. And the tribal population, I think, is going to benefit the greatest from this particular clearance of the Naxals, who had actually, degraded development to such an extent that the biggest sufferers were the tribal people, whom they professed to have actually, they were fighting for, but they weren't fighting for the tribals. They were fighting for a flawed ideology. And I think it is the defeat of that ideology which we must celebrate now. Uday.
Yes, let me in fact also get you in here, Major General Sudhakarji, on of course, the fact that obviously there was an earnestness missing in policy. Statements can be made, but if action does not follow words, then the earnestness does not show and the seriousness does not show. And many question as to whether there was any then, earnestness in the policy to tackle red terror, to tackle Maoist terror. Now, of course, the NDA puts up their CV and says, look, this is what has been done. Why didn't the Congress do this in their time?
Yeah, Uday, good evening. Thank you for getting me for your show. Without getting into brickbats, political brickbats, I would say BJP and Congress. As a countryman and as a retired soldier, I would say that there was a total lack of focus, there was a total lack of understanding, there was a total lack of prioritization of challenges, threat identification. And as a security analyst and as a geopolitical student, I would say why it happened, why it should have been avoided, well, I cannot comment. At that point in time, I am privy to certain things. It will be unfair on my part to disclose. There was total lack of understanding of the red corridor, and the threat had not been correctly understood. And as a result, I would say, allow me to express my grief that perhaps because of lack of understanding, there was fear in the higher echelon. And that fear, actually, when I was doing NDC in 2013, I think, yeah, I could see my colleagues from the CAPF who were operating in those sectors, they were also paranoid about the reprisals which would be coming if they took any initiative and action. So therefore, I would say that we have come a long way. Whether it was done, they might have had some cause and reasons as to why they did not focus on this particular issue, why did they not channelize their effort and pump in more resources into this area, why no roads and tracks were built, why no communication modules were set up, there was no administration presence, there were no culverts, people didn't know where to go. When they had a problem, there were no schools, there were no water, there were no roads. How come they have come up in just about 7-8 years, or let's say from 2000, without meaning to that the present dispensation has able to achieve? As regards the question which you alluded to, the earlier one, in matters of security, going by the tenets of military teachings, generally we don't go by giving a assured kind of a termination, conflict termination in any kind of warfare. But this is something which is actually, full of admiration for the kind of confident announcement which has been made by the top leadership in our political dispensation. This would go as a classical study as to how confident the leadership could be, because they have got the pulse of the ground. That pulse of the ground, it comes with, when you talk to people, you engage with the stakeholders on the ground, and when you ensure that their livelihood, their upkeep, their quality of life is dependent on X, Y, Z, and they're being provided. Today, the schools are operating, the teachers have been given, the students are learning in the schools. That is the kind of, involvement, passion with which people work. And
Absolutely.
I think kudos go to the present leadership for that. Back to you.
Absolutely. Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, let me bring you in here. How important is it to tackle internal issues like, Maoism that we have been seeing plaguing India for a country to succeed? you can have, of course, the economy on the right track, foreign policy approach on the right track, and a focus on many other issues. But if you don't tackle internal security challenges like Maoism, does that bring a country down? Has that been bringing India down? How important is this all-out war and this goal to finish the Naxal menace by 2026 March end?
It's a great victory for the ruling party, and I would congratulate the ruling party and those who are there, because they have tackled it, as my colleagues have said, on a two-front basis. First, they have tackled it through great courage, through infrastructure, etc., etc. But they have also completely turned around the government policy towards tribal development. Those who were in Chhattisgarh, they did not have access to television. They had no access to medicines. Their children, their daughters used to be forcibly married off to the guerrillas. It was like a mini state within the Republic of India. That is something that an emerging country of 1.4 billion people with a very, very good security apparatus and a democracy cannot allow such a thing to happen. And it was allowed to happen under successive Congress governments, who also lost leadership, including Mr. V.C. Shukla, who was assassinated by the Maoists. Now, why do they want to surrender is also an important thing. Not just because of the military offensive with it, also because they have seen the development coming. I know people from Chhattisgarh. I know tribals from Chhattisgarh. They tell me that earlier, let's say somebody has a simple problem like a thyroid problem, which is highly responsible to thyroid medication, that they had no access, and the Maoists never allowed them any access to go to the city. And when they had a daughter, they would put the daughter secretly on a bus or whatever was available and send the daughter far away from Chhattisgarh to save her from forcible marriage. So therefore, I would say that I am not ashamed of saying that this is a great triumph for the ruling party, for our Home Minister, for the local leadership in Chhattisgarh, to the security forces, and for those who worked tirelessly day and night to bring development to Chhattisgarh. And because of that development today, the Maoists understand more than anything else that the people don't want them there anymore. Why are they surrendering? On one hand, because of pressure from the armed forces, but on the other hand, because the people are no longer captive to their ideology. This has been handled much better than the Naxalite movement, which I remember in my first year of college, which completely finished off the economy of West Bengal and made in Bengali we used to call them the boxwalas. All the boxwalas left Kolkata and moved either to Delhi or Bombay. They ruined the Bengal economy, these Naxalites. And when we talk about the difference between the Naxalism in Kolkata and Chhattisgarh, it is important to remember that the Naxalites in Kolkata were white-collared Naxalites, highly educated people, had been to the best universities, and therefore they were a formidable threat and needed to be eliminated in a different way. These Naxalites are different. They are hardened terrorists, and they are urban guerrillas, and they were eliminated exactly the way an urban guerrilla needs to be eliminated, and also by bringing development to that region. So there is a difference between elimination of Maoism in Chhattisgarh and elimination of Naxal movement in West Bengal, which I'm sure colleagues Mr. Mani would know more than me. But that is the most important thing. When you're fighting the Red Corridor, you have to have your weapons ready according to the requirements of the moment. That's what we've done so successfully. And those who are the most grateful over there are the tribal people of Chhattisgarh. I know some of them quite well. They are so relieved they can now lead a normal life. They can watch a TV soap opera. They can watch the news. They have access to medication. They have access to proper food. They can lead a normal life like the rest of us in the Republic of India lives. I think it's such a shame that they missed out on so much for so many years because
Yes,
of lack of political will on the part of the predecessor government.
absolutely. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. We've run out of time. Let's slip into a short break.